We have lots of mini Modis everywhere. You can go the cricket stars agents. They behave like Amit Shah, and so you have the same thing in Bollywood. You same thing in business, and media behaves in the same manner. What started with Bollywood and Page Three has infiltrated all over in every sphere of Indian public life, and cricket is definitely not an exception to that thing.
Hi, this is Sharda Ugra.
Hello, this is Muhammad Isam.
Hi, this is Pradeep Magazine.
Welcome to the PCCI podcast.
That's 4 in a row. There is good. They're going to blow next. The prodigal son turned Messiah gets his second 100 in successive.
India have won in dramatic style. The whole of Bengal are on their feet.
The air goal! Not that important. He's gone the next ball. The dream has diminished for Carlos Brathwaite. Unbelievable scenes here at the Budwig.
Cricket in the subcontinent has never just been sport. It has always carried trauma, identity, power, and at crucial moments, diplomacy. Matches here are about who we are, who we fear, and how we see our neighbors. Today, Bangladesh has been booted out of the T20 World Cup. Indian fans are gloating across social media. The BCCI, more powerful than ever, has been shaping the modern game in its image. And yet, when you step back and look at it from a political lens, India has perhaps never felt more isolated, A, in its own neighborhood, and B, in the game it prides itself as being a part of. So what does this tell us? Is dominance in cricket or sport translating into influence? Is it breeding resentment? And what happens when a game that once connected the subcontinent starts to mirror its fractures? To discuss all of this and more, we have with us Sushant Singh, journalist, author, lecturer in South Asian Studies at the Yale University. He's also consulting editor at the Caravan, a columnist with the Telegraph, the Morning Context, and you can read his work in Foreign Affairs, Foreign Policy, Financial Times, and the New Yorker. Cricket fans have most recently seen him on videos of the Caravan and read his writing on Cricket et al. We highly recommend checking out his Cricket et al. Piece on Mustafizur Rahman called Mustafizur. Welcome to the pod, Sushant. How are you doing?
Thank you, Sarthak, and thank you, MV, and also a big shout out for Sharda Ugra for putting us in touch. And so it's wonderful to be on your podcast.
Super. So let's start with something that's recent. We recently lost IS Bindra, and Cricinfo published a moving tribute from Ehsan Mani, who served within the ICC, who worked closely with Mr. Bindra during the 1996 World Cup. And Ehsan Mani's tribute wrote about the background mechanics at what went into making the 96 World Cup a reality for PILCOM, which is the Pakistan India Lanka Committee, where they could have fought for their own shares, but they went together. And, Pakistan and India actually played a game combined in Sri Lanka. So back then, power seemed to come with a willingness to tag everyone along, to stand together. Talking about the contrast between the time of Bindra and Mani to what we see cricket as now, what do you think has changed? Where are we right now?
No, so this is an interesting entry point into the discussion on how cricket now looks like vis-a-vis what it looked like in the 80s and 90s. So Ehsan Mani's piece also referred to what happened in 87 and how things gone on. What I thought particularly significant in Ehsan Mani's piece, even going beyond the PILCOM, were two aspects. One is when the Sahara Cup is organized in Canada. I don't know if you guys remember those 5 or 6 series, where Saurav Ganguly once took 5 wickets bowling his dibbly-dobbly seamers, and Inzamam-ul-Haq went into the audience, into the stadium.
Yeah, with the bat.
With his bat, etc. Infamous for a lot of things, and Debashish Mohanty troubling Saeed Anwar, who could not pick him up, etc., etc. So, keeping that aside, so he gives a very interesting anecdote about the Sahara Cup. That Mark Mascarenhas comes to Bindra and says, that we will pay you more because India has a bigger television market, and we'll pay Pakistan less. And Bindra says no. We will both be paid equally, and he personally decides to inform Ehsan Mani that and Mascarenhas that said that I will not tell the Pakistanis that I'm paying you more. So for it would have been very easy for BCCI or Bindra to take that kind of money. But he goes to Ehsan Mani. He says, I didn't want you to hear from Mark. I wanted you to hear from me that they came with this offer and we refused that offer. So it shows a kind of a respect and an equality with which you were treating other countries as equal partners. The example that you gave of PILCOM also comes from there, that you were not seeing yourself yourself as some kind of a superior being, as some kind of, in a power hierarchy, almost like the Chinese mythology, that there is a hierarchy in which somebody is at the center, at the top, and then everybody else is in a hierarchy lower below. So what you see both in 87 when the Reliance World Cup is organized and in 1996 is very clearly, or even slightly later, is something where India and Pakistan are willing to engage as equals with mutual respect for each other. The second thing which stood out for me in Ehsan Mani's piece, and I think that is where the shift has taken place under the current dispensation, under this, under Jai Shah and everyone else in the last few years, I think is the couple of concluding paragraphs where Ehsan Mani says that even when India had problems with Pakistan, or wanted to punish Pakistan or show Pakistan in bad light, both Bindra and Jagmohan Dalmia agreed with Ehsan Mani that it should not be at the cost of cricket. That at no point should the sport itself suffer, even though both sides understood that there were political aims that needed to be managed, like one of the Sara Cups had to be cancelled, etc., because of Kargil war. So he says we understood that the broad picture should remain clear. So you can do all these other things, smaller things, tactical things, but the bigger goal should never be hurt. That almost reminded me of, I don't know if you guys have seen the Lincoln, that very famous movie Lincoln, maybe a decade old now.
Yeah.
Award-winning movie. So there's a line where in Lincoln where he says, I was a map maker. You never go to your destination straight, jumping over rivers and stream and river and fences and rivulets. You always take a journey which is more easy to do, but you reach your destination. And he's talking about the anti-slavery legislation, that if I'm not doing everything like absolutely in a straight line, it is because I know how to reach the destination. And I think that was very clear when you look at Ehsan Mani's piece, or what Bindra did, or what even Amrit Mathur says was done at that point in time. I think, but we should also recognize that this is also a period when England and England and Australia are extremely dominant in cricket. So it, in a sense, allows countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka to band together, or even West Indies to an extent, to band together and look at this kind of a very white man oppression. So you think of almost like India's independence movement, where nationalism could be defined in terms of being an anti-colonial nationalism. So it was easier at that point in time when cricket was so dominated. I think till the late 80s, both England and Australia had a veto in the Imperial Cricket Council, or what became the ICC later on.
Yeah.
And even in the 90s, England had not given the details of its offers for the 96 World Cup when they came with the proposal. So I think we must also not forget that the global context in which cricket operated at that point in time easily allowed countries like India and Pakistan to band together, to come together, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, to come together and assert their primacy, assert their market, assert their thing. The third thing which we should also recognize, that is a period in the 80s and 90s when the difference between India and Pakistan is not really big. India and Pakistan is still hyphenated, both economically and geopolitically. So, the first time it happens is when Clinton comes to India to visit India. He spends 4 days in India and then spends an hour and a half in Pakistan. And that's the first time that the hyphenation is going away. So India and Pakistan were hyphenated and were seen as at peers, at par with each other. So there was no idea that we are massively superior, and how can we engage with a riffraff country like Pakistan, which is a kind of narrative which has gained ground in last 12 to 15 years, particularly that that we should not be engaging with Pakistan. So if you see within this context, the people who were leading the BCCI and the PCB, the quality of people, and I know while we are critical of BCCI, the quality of people leading PCB and BCB is equally bad. The Bangladesh Cricket Board and Pakistan Cricket Board, we should recognize, are led by equally bad people. And I think the structure of the ICC, where the power was distributed with these countries, Gora countries, with these white countries, and the fact that geopolitically, economically, etc., India and Pakistan were still peer countries, allowed that kind of thing to take place. But the fact remains that the cricket was the larger aim, which should not have been hurt at that point in time.
Yeah, and I since you mentioned this, one of the core memories of our time, when you mentioned the 99 Kargil War and the cancellation of the Sahara Cup in Toronto, was the test series in India, where Pakistan came over for 2 tests in India and the World Test, the first Asian Test Championship game in Calcutta. And Shiv Sena dug up the pitch for the Kotla Test. The Kotla Test had to be moved to the second test, all that. And there is a footage that's been recorded and put on YouTube and everywhere else as documentary footage Before the first test, as Tendulkar is, training, I think Sara is just born or Arjun is just born. So Wasim Akram goes with a gift and goes up to Sachin, puts his arm behind his back and says, "Baby, kaisa hai?" And Sachin is like, "Baby, badhiya hai, aap kaise hain?" And he also tells the story of how Saeed Anwar approached him at Toronto. And he's like, "Sachin bhai, baat karni hai." Sachin is like, "Please tell me." And he's like, "यार ये देवाशीष मोहंती का क्या करना है? वो बॉल इन स्विंग करेगा, आउट स्विंग करेगा, डालेगा नहीं डालेगा, क्या चल रहा है?" And these are stories of friendship. I mean, it is being, it is the way the film has been made is like these massive enemies and hurling stones at each other, where there has been lots of camaraderie. During the 23 World Cup, for example, there were articles coming out of how Gavaskar and Miadad's families traveled together when they were touring and how they would stay at each other's place. Their wives would go out together. These two would go out together. Sidhu went over for Imran Khan when he became head of state. And one thing that it's maybe a repetition of the initial conversation, one thing that really hurts us is that camaraderie has gone with so many countries where it's become so tribal. And there is a pride that BCCI takes at being in the position of power today, where it's like, oh no, I mean, back when we were not in power, somebody else was behaving this way. Today we are in power, we have all the right to behave like bullies. Do you see it as also a societal change towards, an almost alpha male personality ruling everywhere, be it politics, be it trade, be it tech? You see these alpha male, very, big tech are all led by these Bollywood, these massive alpha males saying we know how it's done. Do you see it as a societal turn towards, the alpha male ecosystem?
Yes, I think a lot of threads to weave in there, and I don't know how political your podcast can get, but as I said,
political as you want to,
as political as it can.
Okay, MV. So as Hartosh and I were discussing, and I said, Hartosh, every field in India now have their mini Modis. We have lots of mini Modis everywhere. You can go the cricket stars agents. They behave like Amit Shah, and so you have the same thing in Bollywood. You have same thing in business. And media behaves in the same manner. What started with Bollywood and Page 3 has infiltrated all over in every sphere of Indian public life. And cricket is definitely not an exception to that thing. As far, because you raised the question about India, Pakistan, camaraderie, and people coming together. The 99 documentary that you were talking about, I think it was Channel 4 documentary, Shahryar Khan, and this is just before the Chennai test.
Yes.
And you see Wasim Akram with his wife, who passed away unfortunately, and the two sons, etc., in a hotel room. There's very nice footage. There's a lot of nice footage.
Yeah.
And Shahryar Khan telling him that we are ambassadors of Pakistan. Our job here is to, this is a diplomatic activity that we are doing. And Shahryar Khan being the old world diplomat, all that is in that, all this is in that film. But even there's a past history to this. So 99 is after the Kargil war is over and Musharraf is coming to Agra, etc., etc. Please remember 71. If you go back and read Sunny Days again, there is this portion about the rest of world playing Australia at that point in time because South Africa could not travel because they'd just been barred from apartheid. And you remember that famous Gary Sobers innings, which Ian Chappell and everybody says is the greatest betting display they've ever seen. Sir Don also said that, where he thrashes Dennis Lilly all over the place after getting out for duck in the first innings. So it is in that series that the 71 war is on at that point in time. And Intikhab Alam and Bishan Bedi and Farooq Engineer and Sunny Gavaskar and all of them are there in the rest of the world 11. And Sunny Gavaskar mentions it in Sunny Days that they are actually going out for dinners every time. They're actually listening to the updates on radio about the war. And they say Intikhab is worried whether Lahore would be bombed, and Bedi is talking about whether Indian Punjab will be bombed. But the camaraderie and the bond does not go away, even when the two countries are at war and these people are traveling together. So, we were talking about a past where things were like this between in sport. To a point now where some of the kind of language that Surya Yadav used after the Asia Cup or during the Asia Cup was like really toxic and bad, and I really don't know whether that really goes with the idea of sport. If the idea of sport is to build bridges, is to explore the best of humanity, is to excel, to be imperfect, to accept imperfection, to have second chances, all those glorious things which you
the Olympic code, essentially the Olympic code.
Essentially the Olympic code, there are problems with the Olympic code as well. But the idea is that you can fail, you can succeed, you can be imperfect, and you can have second chances in life. And this is human excellence at its best, and it can inspire others and do a lot for humanity, bring people together, not divide people. But I think something which happened in English football primarily, and that got transposed, this kind of tribalism, which perfectly fits with nationalism. So, and this is something which started happening in the late 90s in India. As you would remember, there's that very famous book about the 1996 World Cup as to, how things started changing. So there tribalism which comes in, and primarily you see this with marketing gimmicks, the English football, the English Premier League football teams going out with their, with their kits and with their, and actually trying to sway the minds and trying to create a cult around it. So that cultification and the idea of celebrityhood of Indian cricket, where a Ranji Trophy match having Virat Kohli will have 10,000 people, and all 10,000 will vanish the moment Virat Kohli is out, kind of a thing. You're not coming there for cricket. You're not coming there to enjoy sport. You're just coming to watch a celebrity. It could have been instead of Virat Kohli, it could have been Ranveer Singh, for all you care. Like, it's just you're coming for celebrity watching in the name of cricket. So I think. The one is to come back to your original question before we divert too much, is that yes, the Indian society and polity has changed dramatically in the last 15, 20 years. The idea of these mini Modis being everywhere there, where they try to control and show that they are superior to everything, and it's all hierarchical, where somebody is above you and somebody is below you. So you'll be very nice to Trump and say nothing to Trump, but you will try and punish Bangladesh or whatever, or Nepal or whatever, supposedly a smaller country. And I think that is replicated. In every sphere in India, whether it is films, whether it is cricket, whether it is television, whether it is media houses, whether it is journalism. All these, the Indian public life has been diminished to a great degree by doing this. But let's also not forget that sport, particularly when sport is diminished in this way, it has a larger consequence. Then some of those good things in life. It is like art. Why do we do art? Why do we do music? If music is only going to be toxic and going to tell you to do nasty things to Pakistan, or to kill all Muslims, or to punish all Christians, then that music has really no value, or any art.
Don't give them ideas, Sushant.
No, they have enough ideas, because there is enough Bhojpuri thing, and there's a great book on how much of
H-pop.
The H-pop book is there. So they already have all the horrible ideas that you and I can't imagine of. They already have horrible ideas. So so sport, to my mind, growing up, and I'm sure as you were growing up, sport was about something fine in life, something nice in life, something positive, something which made you feel good about yourself, about your group, about people, about you. That's why you clapped even when an opposition player hits a six or does well. When AB de Villiers is massacring you or Ricky Ponting in 2003 World Cup final, you have to acknowledge that this guy is playing at the peak of his powers. Now you can't say, this guy is not playing well, or Wasim, Wasim Akram at his peak is Wasim Akram. There is no one else. Like, it is that kind of a thing. But I think unfortunately we have reached that stage where everybody's an enemy rather than being an opponent in a sport field, where the idea that our team has to be win at all costs, and if we don't win, then it is not a sport. Then we'll not talk about it. I don't know if you guys realize this, MV, and Sarthak. Indian media coverage of cricket matches where India loses is so much lesser than Indian media coverage of cricket matches India wins. There is hardly any coverage. They don't want to do anything which will show Indian cricket team in bad light, that Indian cricket team can fail. The reports will just vanish so quickly. And I'm talking about even as prominent a site as ESPN, Cricinfo, or CricBuzz, or whatever, some of those prominent sites. The difference in coverage, if it wins, it will be running for 3 days with 10 pieces, and talking about everything. And if India loses, then it's like it vanishes, and there'll be some very minor technical pieces here and there, and then you will just vanish. So even a tenure like Gautam Gambhir is not analyzed critically enough. You will skirt around the boundaries adjacent to what the real issues are without playing it. So yeah, we really are in a very weird time in that sense.
I say
It's
this
an internal
often
joke
that
within.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's the same joke that essentially
Yeah.
India has never lost on Star Sports. So Star Sports पे कभी भी इंडिया के हारने की highlights कभी भी नहीं आती.
There's that Sanjog Gupta quote, no, when they were conceiving the IPL, that in this India will win every day. Sanjog Gupta was head of ESPN Star, or I think Sony, or one of the companies at that time, and he had said that during the IPL, India will win every day. MD, did you have posters?
Now he's the ICC CEO, man. He's the ICC CEO.
Yes. Now India will win
everywhere. Either India will win, or there'll be no matches. Did you guys see that?
Either India will win or India will win.
Did you see that Kunal Kamra tweet about ICC being the parody account of the BCCI?
Yeah. So, incidentally, our next question is on that itself. So, Sharda, of course, in her now famous interview with Karan,
Oh, yeah.
said that ICC's BCCI's Dubai office. So, I think I will take it one step ahead. I'll say that it's the BJP's Dubai office with a dotted line reporting to Mukesh Ambani. So, I mean, how do you see this from a geopolitical lens that ICC is essentially speaking the BCCI's language? And even without Jaisha at the helm, it's essentially powerless in front of Indian money.
Yeah, I think that much is pretty clear that that this recognition that ICC or World Cricket runs on Indian money, and India can run run World Cricket the way it wants to run is something very very clear. And I think when Sharda said that ICC is BCCI's Dubai office, she's actually saying the same thing that you're saying. BJP's Dubai office, or Mukesh Bhai's dotted line, dash line, or maybe not be even a dash line, because the lines are all crisscrossing all over the
It's the
all
same
over.
line.
What
It's Geo
dash line,
ICC.
man? Like, sorry.
It's Geo ICC. ICC
It's
powered
Geo
by
ICC.
Geo.
Yeah. It's Geo ICC, and it's crazy. Like the ESPN Griffin Co is also owned by Geo. Yeah. Like what is left then? That everything, the whole ecosystem is owned by these guys. Now, when coming to the parallels with geopolitics, so this how India behaves with ICC and World Cricket is how the Hindutva regime in India would want to behave in geopolitics. This is what their idea is, that if we tomorrow have the kind of power, then we should be able to get away with anything that we do. The idea of almost, Matsnyaya, as they used to call it, or anarchic power where might is right only works. So we criticize Trump for doing might is right kind of a thing. Today I'll bomb Iran, tomorrow I'll bomb Venezuela kind of a thing. Indians are doing the same in world cricket, and they would do the same if they had that kind of power, if they had that kind of power geopolitically. Now, what else you are seeing is something which somebody had told me just yesterday. Somebody whom we both of us know, but I don't want to name the person. Is that the BCCI and ICC are now actively going out and soliciting smaller countries uh, for Olympic bids by giving them largesse, by giving them money, etc. Large number of small countries in South America, and where cricket just doesn't exist at all. But you can always go and give them give them funds, give them grants, and almost like a lobbying activity, so that Ahmedabad gets to host the host the Olympics in 2036, and both Jay Shah and Sanjay Gupta are part of that exercise. Even countries like Uganda, which is of course now famous for tweeting what it tweeted a couple of days back. If you go to the Uganda cricket website, the picture on top is the Uganda cricket guys with Jay Shah at the top of their website, and these guys are actually making fun of ICC, etc. And I was like, I was actually inquiring whether these guys are really the cricket board, etc. And they said yes, they are the real cricket board, and you'll go and click the link and you can see the picture with Jay Shah there. So by the way, Iceland is not affiliated to ICC. So while it is an official account of the Iceland cricket, which keeps on doing those shit posting, it is not officially a member of the ICC. There are just 5 cricket clubs which operate in Iceland, and this is a group of that. So at least let's be clear, Iceland is, at least when it's mocking or doing the shit posting, it is not part of the ICC.
The Iceland Football Association Twitter account is the same. I think it's the same dudes handling it, because they also do pretty much the same stuff.
Yeah, and they claim that they are not South Asians. I refuse to believe it, but that's the claim that they make. I don't know.
I
Also,
don't know.
another thing that is... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another thing that in the same conversation about lobbying and owning disproportionate power, and to tie back to an older point that you made Sushant, is when we were growing up, and I'm 100% sure it is true for you and a lot of our listeners, in our almirahs and our bedroom walls, we'd have posters of this multiple, like all of us had Jaunty Rhodes. Every single person in my generation had Jaunty Rhodes. That same picture of his run out against Inzamam. We had Warren, we had Lara, we had lots of people, and that came from an appreciation of what the sport was. Yes, we were fans of India and we desperately wanted India to win every game. But there was an appreciation for the sport. Do you feel that in trying to be this overlord, at least from our perspective, that appreciation is gone, where we are now more interested in, victory and glory rather than the nuances of a sport. And it's unfortunately coming at a time when the two cricket team, the men's and the women's cricket team, are bloody good.
No, I 100% agree with you that the idea of sport as a skill, as something to be appreciated, something to be inspired by, something, even if even if an opposing team or another team does well. And the whole idea of people clapping in the cricket field when somebody scores a century, etc., comes from there. But, one of the indicators of that will look at the cricket commentary. I'm sure you guys have done podcasts on cricket commentary and the quality of cricket commentary, particularly in India, but globally. And I don't think the Australian commentary is any great. Maybe Nasir Hussain and Michael Atherton, maybe the last couple of guys left who might still be doing some decent work. Atherton particularly, but other than that, if you look at the cricket commentary, the way it covers, so you and I our growing up years were also shaped by cricket commentary, like the kind of cricket commentators that were there. So you get a particular kind of narrative, you get a particular kind of understanding, and they tell you to appreciate good things, and say, okay, this guy is so good or this opponent is so good, and you got to say the right thing about opponent. What you have right now is a very parochial, and I'm using a very mild word here, very parochial kind of commentary. So the younger generation, which is listening to that kind of commentary or seeing that kind of coverage, and then you of course have the toxicity of social media. So how are you being socialized into cricket? How are you being socialized into sport in today's India? If you are in today's India, you are being socialized into cricket only through nationalism, through very toxic social media, and through a commentary which doesn't talk about finer part, but which is only that into hype and hoopla, and like only the Indian cricket team and the Indian cricket star exists, star building, etc., etc. So how do we socialize a young person? If you and I were 10 or 12 today and were being socialized into this kind of cricket, we would not have the kind of cricket education that we
No
have.
chance, yeah.
Also, yeah, when we talk like this, Sarthak and MV, I'm happy because I'm an old man. You guys are much younger. Yeah? You should not talk about our time. People will think you are some 65-year-old, 70-year-old guys when you are like barely out of your teens, man.
But the difference is such. I mean, I hear your point, but I'm sure MV will agree with me. And MV and I, because we live close to each other, we have this chat often. The difference is so stark. The generation gap is so massive that you rightly said, a 12 to 15-year-old, it's not their fault, because when we were growing up, there were these programs run by a Ramiz Raja, a Tony Kosier, a Richie Beno, a Tony Gregg, a Boycott, whoever, sometimes John Dykes, where it would be a program on the history of the game, nothing to do with the two countries playing it. I have seen footage from West Indies versus Pakistan tour in the 80s. Pakistan were the only opponents they struggled with in that 80 to 95 period. And there was such an appreciation for Imran and Zahir Abbas. And even in our households, Prem Panikar is a friend, guide, mentor, all of it to me. So I keep talking to him about cricket, and I remember him saying that when he was growing up, and when even our generation, you looked at the sport first, and then you funneled into your liked players and liked teams, and the conversation was always about the sport. Today, that conversation itself has shifted to recognizing your identity, your power, and I guess I'll segue into the next question. I mean, along with Mike. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just before that, I think kids today, because I have a 7-year-old and I see other kids around. So kids today, essentially, even if they play sport, it's from that hero worship side itself, right? So it's always like a Cristiano Ronaldo versus Messi, or versus somebody, or Virat Kohli versus Rohit Sharma, or something like that. It is not about ki, like, my entire childhood is essentially spent copying bowling actions of every bowler that I knew, because I used to play with a wall. I had no friends in my own building. So until I started getting good to play in another building, essentially played with a wall. So you would copy everybody. Now that itself is gone. The other thing about commentary is that painfully I watch cricket on mute, and now it has come to a scenario where my 7-year-old was like, "Maybe just put it on mute. It's fine." It used to be like, why are you watching on mute? To, okay, I think it's fine. You can put it on mute. And so I think even the younger generation, probably, if you are able to guide them through, they will understand that this is probably not the right kind of. Because I mean, what are they looking at? If you are looking at a match between, let's say, Pakistan versus New Zealand, but as soon as the innings break happens, I think Pakistan versus Australia was the game in the 2023 World Cup. As soon as the innings break happened, instead of discussing Travis Head's 100, they essentially showed that Indian team has landed in some city. And that was what was discussed for 20 minutes. They landed. I'm like, bhai, uska main kya karoon? Matlab, I have no relation to this. And it further confirmed my biases that I shouldn't watch any pre-post match coverage at all. When earlier, if you look at it, like you would wait for Inzamam to do something in the post match, like that youngster wala that is like for months on end, friends would tell each other youngster, just as Inzamam had done to Ramiz Raja, or like copy Azhar saying boys just need to bat well, bowl well, and field well. These were the things, right? And I don't think that's part of the DNA.
Or copy
in terms of
Azhar
how-
saying thoda samay de ke dalna chote bhai.
Exactly.
I would have I would play against bhaiyas, like 5 years elder to me, and I'd just use this line. They'd get so pissed. It was very funny.
Exactly, right? Like, and I don't see that happening as much because when I see people playing sport and people playing uh, any kind of sport at different age groups now, and luckily, I mean, I understand that I am from privilege. One change that I do see, at least in the last 6 to 9 months, is that the number of boys and girls playing together has increased. And I say it from a very privileged lens, and I'm not commenting about all of India, but that has increased. So I think that at least gives me some joy. So in case any of the listeners say ki we only talk about the bad things, I think I've just shared a positive.
No, MV, two things I'll say. MV, one more thing which I will definitely say is that the caste hierarchy and the social hierarchy of Indian even male cricketers has flattened to a great degree in last 20-25 years. That you have to acknowledge. So Indian cricket was highly dominated by upper caste or upper class social groups, and
Yeah.
that has completely changed in the last 20 odd years.
Yeah.
This young girls and women playing is very is a great positive. And this may simply help uh, probably in some way help us treat women better, treat young girls equally. And this may, if it helps in any way denting patriarchy in India or do anything for gender equality, I'll be more than that's a huge positive, even if it does in a limited way, because people see young girls on the same cricket field or playing with them. That would definitely be huge positive. But the way three of us are talking, I don't know if you guys ever remember this. There was a very famous Dhamveer Bharti play called Andha Yog, which is at the end of Mahabharata. This is a small play and very famous play. Andha Yog was conducted at Purana Kila also, and he wrote it when he was just 25. Dhanveer Bharti is who wrote Gunaho Ka Devta and Suraj Ka Saatwaं Ghoda, which Shyam Benegal made it later into films. Very famous Hindi writer and novelist. So, there is a opening line कि जो सभ्य था सौम्य था वो सब बीत गया. So, it's almost like when we are talking, it almost reminds me of end of Mahabharata कि भाई कलयुग आ गया, जो सभ्य था सौम्य था सब बीत गया. Like it's almost a lament for the times that have gone by. No, there is nothing to disagree here on what three of us are saying. But what essentially we should recognize is that one is it diminishes sport, it diminishes cricket, and it diminishes us as human beings, or as a group of people, or as a community. And I think that is something which people should recognize very quickly. Like with art, like with music, sport has an ability to uplift you and make you a better version of yourself, both as an individual and as a group. But it can also, now we are seeing it also has the ability to make you a more diminished version of yourself, more smaller version of yourself, and also reduce the group to how should I put it? A more reduced group, a more diminished group, not as cohesive, as evolved a group as we can be.
I hear you. Speaking of Kalyug, let's go to Pakistan. Sorry, that joke was right there. One of our all-time favorite books is Rahul Bhattacharya's Pandits from Pakistan. And I, as somebody who writes, I keep reading it just for multiple reasons. But I think what we lose out on, and to carry on this point you made, Sushant, is Pandits from Pakistan shows Pakistan from the lens of an Indian tourist. Both the country, its people, their love towards India. The 2004 tour was one of the great tours of, our times. Do you do you foresee a world in which a newer, younger India will ever see Pakistan normally? Like the people of Pakistan, and separate their alternative militia with the average Joe in Pakistan, and find that everything between your sense of humor to your food to the things you watch to the things you talk about with your parents, everything is the same. Do you think there is a world where we can even out or flatten out to that?
I would definitely want to believe that the world is possible, maybe, and hopefully in our own lifetimes. So, the way I'll explain to you is this. Think of it this way. You might think that I'm talking absolute nonsense and not talking out of my hat. Just remember, you guys have grown up in areas which also saw violence during partition. And just remember what was happening between 46 and 48. Between 46 and 48 till Gandhi's assassination, and we are talking on the day Gandhi was assassinated on 30th of January, India sees massive communal violence, shifting of population, targeting of people. And think of India by 54, 56. India is back to being a harmonious country which has come in together under a constitutional system. Countries can change, societies can change dramatically. Who could have imagined it for between 46 and 48 that India would dramatically change and become this country? That it could become this kind of a very secular, cohesive kind of a country where you had a Muslim ministers, where you had all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. There was no discrimination at that point in time. Although they may have remained, social remnants may have remained, or even by the 60s, it 65 war and talking about if anybody tries to target Muslims, I'll be the first one and come and punish you, because India is not about Hindus. So societies can change. So I would like to believe that such an India is possible. Such an India is definitely possible. But is it possible if we continue on the current trajectory? No. It is only possible if this current trajectory, the political trajectory on which we are on, if this project is defeated and reversed, then only is that alternative future possible. Just one point, Sarthak, about Pakistan. I have traveled to Pakistan as a journalist. When I was with the Express in 2017, I did travel to Pakistan and I attended a conference. They took me to North Waziristan, Afghanistan border. So I have seen a bit of Pakistan, etc. When I was with the UN peacekeeping assignment as a military observer in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ivory Coast in West Africa, many years back, a couple of decades back. Even then, we had Pakistani officers, etc. So living with us, working with us, in the same teams. So I have a little more understanding, and of course, my international experience at Yale, etc., where of course you meet people from all nationalities. But I work closely, and I've also traveled to Pakistan. This is true. What Rahul also mentions in his book, and what a lot of other people have experienced about Pakistan is what even Sharda has experienced and written about is the people of Pakistan. The average Joe in Pakistan is extremely friendly towards India. So the state may be very toxic, and very vicious towards India, or the militias backed by state may be very vicious, or there may be hardcore conservative groups which may be very vicious. But the people of Pakistan, and it actually comes as a surprise because that's not replicated in India. We are not that outgoing. We are not that positive about people coming from Pakistan. And this is not just last 10 years, even 20 years back or 25 years back. In Pakistan, you get surprised. All of us can get really surprised as to why are these guys being so nice to us. And you feel at one level, you almost feel embarrassed about it. And this is something which a lot of people who have traveled to Pakistan have experienced and written about. And I think the point that you made about differentiating between the Pakistani state, the Pakistani military, the jihadi groups, and the people of Pakistan, I think that differentiation has to be definitely there. We should not lose the goodwill of people of Pakistan. Like I always believe, we should not lose the goodwill of people of Bangladesh. Governments can come and go. The people of these countries in our neighborhood have to believe that India and Indians are the lodestar that they should aspire to. That we stand for good things. We stand for a bright future. We stand for togetherness. We stand for a kind of a harmonious future, a kind of a good future. People have to believe that. We can't afford to lose the people. What my fear is, what has happened is that, as in the case of Pakistan, and primarily also more prominently in the case of Bangladesh, we have lost the people. Forget the government. Sheikh Hasina can go, and Khaleda Jia's son can come, or somebody else can come. Nawaz Sharif may not be there tomorrow. Musharraf was there, etc., etc. How could we lose the people of this country? That is something which is really disturbing. And that is something where cricket has also played a part in in making us unpopular and
Yeah.
helping us lose the goodwill of large sections of people in these countries.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to Bangladesh, then another friend of the pod, Swaroop Swaminathan, who writes for the New Indian Express, uh, he has a question. Have Bangladesh showed the world India's duplicity that if they cared so much about avoiding Pakistan, it's actually possible to walk away from the tournament?
Yeah. No, so I'll give you two things on hypocrisy. One is, of course, what happened with the Asia Cup and how it was conducted in Dubai, and it gave an unfair advantage to the Indian cricket team, which New Zealand and others hinted at also, etc., etc. So it's possible. And if you are so angry with Pakistan, you would not play them even in Colombo. But as you know, then the whole Geo ICC network will completely collapse because that's the match which drives the revenue for the ICC tournaments. The second thing which many people actually miss out on this whole debate is that if you're so angry with Bangladesh because it is treating religious minorities, women, etc., poorly under the current regime, man, what is Taliban doing? What is Taliban doing in Afghanistan? The Afghan cricket board, and with due respect to players from Afghanistan, I absolutely adore them. I like their joy of life. They remind me of Sri Lanka, of Arvind Silva, and those days, Asanga Guru Singh, 1996. If you go back to they enjoy playing, and I'm not against the Afghan cricketers. But if you're going to punish cricket teams or punish cricketers because their governments and their states are behaving in an obnoxious manner with religious minorities or are targeting religious minorities, man, there is no more horrible regime than the Taliban.
Yeah.
But you are willing to play up with Afghan players. You are willing to invite Afghan players. Afghan players are not being targeted because Hindus are being killed are being targeted in Taliban, or Sikhs are being targeted in Taliban-run Afghanistan, or women are being treated poorly. So this idea that we are doing it because even by their own logic that we are protectors of non-Muslim religious minorities in these countries does not hold true. So at two levels, it is clearly hypocritical. And I think the Bangladesh episode, in a sense, you are absolutely right. And we has brought the spotlight, uh, actually brought it to the fore that this whole thing is completely hypocritical and no principle applies to it. And so you see, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that a lot of coverage uh, in non-mainstream Indian media or non-corporate owned media is actually calling out India and the BCCI and ICC for what they have done, which is actually a very good thing because in the kind of environment that we have lived in, it would be very difficult. We would all worry about being called anti-national. A lot of other people would say, "Oh, we will be targeted if this was said." But pleasantly, so many people have called us out. Sharda, of course, has called it out so prominently. You guys have been vocal about it. So this is definitely true that the whole Bangladesh episode has shown up what was under the almost like under wraps, brushed under the carpet, has come to the fore. Now you need to see this muck is like very much very much lying there. So there is no principle that actually applies here. The principle that we are targeting because so on something has happened there doesn't apply, because that same thing is happening in Afghanistan, and principle that ICC cannot manage it because Pakistan is doing it. And there's something great, wonderful, which Hartosh actually said. He said, you don't want to shake hands with Pakistan after playing the match. The ball which you are hitting is also coming from Pakistani hands now. The ball that you're fielding is also coming from Pakistani bat now. Then why are you fielding the ball? Why are you playing the ball? भाई आपको हाथ लगाने से प्रॉब्लम है, आपने बोल दिया कि वो शूद्र है या दलित है कि मैं उसका अनटचेबल है वो मेरे लिए. This is exactly what you're saying ना. You are transferring the Hindu hierarchical caste structure by saying that these guys are untouchables for me, so I don't want to shake hands with them. So if they are untouchable, तो वही खेल क्यों रहा है फिर then फिर the whole story of Balu and Ram Goa's corner of a foreign field आ गई ना, मतलब then तो we have reached that stage.
Because
So,
the
like,
geo
you should
in
not play that.
geopolitics is JIO.
Please stop your P here. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it is that Asia Cup was probably the most farcical tournament I remember in a long time. I mean, it was as if there was one part of the discourse which was, oh, we'll boycott and we'll this and we'll that, and the other part was we'll play and we'll profit off it. But we'll behave as if we are having to do it, while the tournament was maximized for 3 India-Pakistan fixtures. You will now have something called the Super 8s. You'll have Super 12s. Is all these new supers coming in? Which Sushant brings us to again, part Bangladesh and part is general subcontinental air, to our favorite place, all three of us favorite place, which is Twitter. The reaction lately over the last few years to BCCI's rise and our general condescension towards our subcontinental neighbors is that there's a sense of gloating that, we should be this way, we should be condescending, we should, talk down to Pakistanis, we should use derogatory terms, we should use pejoratives for things they do and the way they live their lives. And there is obviously the racism and the classism that comes from it. Do you see in other parts of the world, one is it's happening in the vacuum of social media and say, within the subcontinent, but say in other parts of the world where, there is a more ready mingling of each other. Do you see this creating fissures within, between members of certain communities, members of different nationalities? Because how do you break what you're saying on Twitter with what you're saying at the grocery store?
No, it is happening. I'm sure you've heard examples in France about which football team do you support? Do you support Senegal? Do you support France? Even somebody like Zinedine Zidane, one of the
Algeria,
biggest
yeah.
French players, yeah. The whole debate about the Algiers and where his father, whose father supported it when the Algiers, this thing was there. Drogba. So this has been a debate in many countries where this kind of ethno-nationalism has risen, and ethno-nationalism, particularly in Europe, has really risen in the past few years. So if you were to look for parallels, there would be some parallels, but are there going to be absolutely exact parallels to where India is? No, I don't think that those kind of parallels are there, because India has a particular history, a particular kind of political context, and the whole idea of the Indian subcontinent. So fundamentally, if you were to dig slightly deeper, you would come to the conclusion that the idea of Hindutva, which essentially starts with in the first stage as Hindu Rashtra, and then in the next stage is Akhand Bharat, is incompatible with the idea of modern South Asia. So if you're going to tell a country that you cannot exist, if you tell Bangladesh that you cannot exist as an independent country, or Nepal or Sri Lanka or Pakistan, then essentially how is it compatible with the idea? So I think that is what we are grappling with in a geopolitical sense. If you're asking me about today's South Asia, and please remember, these countries are very young. Bangladesh is what 55 years old. Pakistan is what 75, 76 years old. These are very young countries, and these are very small countries in South Asia. Now, if you are a small neighbor dealing with a bigger neighbor, the only way to build your nationalism is in opposition to the bigger neighbor. So you will be forced by your own national identity to create that kind of nationalism, which will always be like, I'm standing up to my bigger neighbor. That is the nature of nationalism, and that is the nature of nationalism in these countries itself. So the whole thing interacts in a manner, or acts in such a manner, where it becomes very difficult to disengage these various parts and go back to a past where our Twitter feeds, the toxicity of our Twitter feeds, and the toxicity of our grocery stores or lived lives, and what we are seeing, the daily lynchings and killings, and the kind of language that we use against other people. It becomes a problem. So I learned this many years back, as I said, when I was with the UN. So I learned this very quickly, that the Nepalese military officers did not like being told that Nepal is just like India. Because if you keep on saying that Nepal is just like India, or Bangladesh is just like India, then their whole question of why does this country exist comes into play.
Yeah.
And so you have to be cognizant of not constantly emphasizing and saying, oh, you are just like us, and you are just like us, and you are just like us. Because if Nepal is just like us, then it should be the 30th state of India. It should not be an independent country. So it becomes very tricky. And the point that you started with initially, that the whole idea of India being this patronizing kind of controlling figure in world cricket and trying to dominate, then of course triggers those emotions, those kind of those kind of thoughts about is Twitter playing a role? Yes, definitely. Social media has allowed barriers to be broken. Social media has allowed a kind of even what we thought were fringe groups to become mainstream, to have voices, to articulate some of the kind of language or some of the emotions which we thought were completely beyond the pale and would never ever feature. And this has happened globally. This has not just happened in India. In India, of course, the consequences have been far bigger and far more crazy. The kind of killings, lynchings of Muslims, targeting of Christian churches and pastors, religious minorities, targeting of Dalits, targeting of tribals, the environmental degradation, etc., that we see. That is clearly the consequences. I think in India have been much bigger. Although the country that where I currently reside, President Trump is trying his best to do things in Minnesota and other places, which is not far off from what we see in India. So I think we are dealing with a very tough. We are in a very tough space. We are in a tough period, but it is in these tough times and in these very hard times that voices of sanity matter. And that's why people like you, MB, people like you, Sarthak, people like Sharda, people like others, these voices, Mukul Keswan, who's a very dear friend of mine, these voices definitely matter at this point in time. We need to keep saying the right thing, irrespective of being, seen as kind of, completely beyond the pale or not creating getting a popular opinion, because what is right will always remain right, what is moral will always remain moral, what is human will always remain human. A lot of people ask this question, oh, how would so and so have behaved in Nazi Germany? And we know, like, you would have behaved this way you are behaving today. You would have not behaved any other way. You would have not suddenly become some kind of a glorious fighter if you were living in Nazi Germany. So I'm actually, this is a matter of great pride that people like you and others do all this and say the right things and speak up for the right values. And that's, I think, something which gives us hope. People like Prem, people like Sharda, people like Mukul, and you all. So that's something which is really truly wonderful.
Anyone you brought up Nazi Germany, anyone talks, the same question is being put so many times. One of my favorite book links to send is Valkyrie. And just to tell them, ki, boss, there were people within the SS that wanted him gone. So please.
Yeah.
Speaking of US, Sushant, I do feel this rise of BCCI as this overlord comes at an important time. The US has denied visa to 75 countries. Many of them will play the World Cup this summer, including Haiti and all that. The US has, like you said, is having massive protests and killings. Gun violence is a huge issue. And yet the FIFA president is now the best friend of Donald Trump. He's at the Oval Office frequently. Similarly, we know how football is dealing with Saudi Arabia's incursion. And, as much as, we show resentment towards what the BCCI has become and is becoming, and how, post 2014, post the big three, cricket has changed. How do you create a global enough riposte to the market, by which I mean the resource that the BCCI will never lose? It could lose 30 matches in a row, lose all its sponsorships, completely run out of money. It will never lose the billion people audience, which will generate its own money. How do you make a feasible riposte to that?
Yeah, I think I've never really given it a thought, Sarthak, and I really can't immediately think of what can be done to counter this or to create a narrative. Football, because you raise, and football, for a long time, or IOC or golf, for example, have been really notorious for what they have for the way they've been run and for the way they have conducted themselves. The FIFA World Cup in US is under a lot of pressure. I don't know if you guys have seen the news that there have been huge debates in Europe whether Europe should even participate in the next FIFA World Cup in the United States. So those kind of debates and those kind of questions are being raised in the US. So eventually, the shift in India will only come when people of our country get back to their senses, and this drug-induced haze in which they are living, or at least a section of them, which gives 240 seats to Mr. Modi in 2024. A section of that crowd goes out of that drug-induced haze and goes back to the same kind of sanity which defined us, where where we would believe in the right things and do the right things. So you do the right things because you believe in them, not because just because you're under pressure or somebody's going to slap you down. And I think the dealing with the market, the oligarchic structure of Indian economy, where I don't know if you saw this fact a couple of days back. that 50% of India's corporate tax revenue to the federal government, to the union government, comes from 0.1% of corporates in India. 50% of, so the oligarchic structure is so dominant in India that even the whole business idea, the model of business, and what kind of support is there. Eventually, the people will have to wake up from whatever haze they are under, whatever they are consumed, and only I think then we will be able to see it. As for the business model, you guys are already aware that Jio has already wanted to renegotiate the deal with ICC, and even for the next round of ICC rights, they're not willing to give the kind of money that they gave this year because there's no competition. So oligarchies and the monopolies that are there in India will have its consequences. For cricket as well. But the larger shift will have to come from a change in the global political environment and within a change in Indian society and polity. And that's the only answer I can think of. Lasting change will only come in that manner.
And do you reckon that also kind of, because usually when you think of these single, monopolistic identities, we think of them as doomed to fail. But do you reckon that can be conveyed to cricket, that or that there is even a sense that we don't need to price this product this highly? We are doing it because we have it. But is there a sense within the sport that, if all power has to rest within India and partly with Australia and England, the amount of money that's flowing in that's causing this kind of inequality is almost unnecessary, and thus there is maybe a shift back to a level playing field, or that is a ship that sailed?
I think that ship has sailed. It was possible in 2016, 2017, where England and Australia and others could have come together. And I think you are referring to a kind of a Mike Carney speech at Davos, where he said that the middle part should come together and stand up to the hegemonic behavior of the United States. Because if they are not on the if they're not at the table, then they will be on the menu. So I think that's exactly what's happening with cricket as well. But in cricket, these middle powers, particularly I think South Africa, England, Australia, and West Indies have chosen completely to be beholden to India and to accept India's this thing, be India's lackeys in the world of cricket and in that sense. So this idea of middle powers banding together and standing up to India and trying to create an alternative at this point in time seems far-fetched. Seems clearly far-fetched. That window has gone, but windows can appear again. Indian economy can go down. Something else can happen. We don't know what can happen. How you don't know how First World War happened. Somebody killed somebody, fired a gun, and and the whole world went into war. So we really don't know what kind of changes, what can trigger what kind of changes at what point in time, and especially if cricket becomes popular in the United States or gets a share of money out of here, how the business models change and how things happen. But hoping that cricket administrators in these other countries will band together and stand up to the BCCI. As of now, it doesn't seem to be on the horizon. But about the future, K Sara Sara, what can we say?
K Sara Sara is a great note. And
we generally don't end the pod without asking for any kind of recommendations, books, YouTube channels, whatever media you feel you're reading now.
Sorry, should it be only cricket or should it be
we are anything. Political as it gets, so you can feel free.
Okay. If it is about a book, the recent book, two books I will recommend. One is slightly older, one is slightly newer. There's a book called Free by Leah Ypi. Leah Ypi, Leahypi. She's an academic in London now. She grew up in Albania. And this book is about her childhood in Albania, which was under a communist regime. And then, of course, the Cold War ends. And then she lives a later part of her teenage, etc., in a neoliberal Albania. So quite a lot of parallels with people like me who grew up in India, which was more socialist, and then economic reform took place. It has been translated in some 80, 90 languages. It's an award-winning book. It just came out a couple of years back. Leah Ypi is a star. If you're not read it, you should read that book. It is beautifully written, both about her journey as a childhood in communist Albania and thereafter. It's Free by Leah Ypi is one. Second book is by my colleagues and friends at Yale, by Rohit Day and Ornit Shani, a book called Assembling India's Constitution. So, we have all been told, and this came out very recently, only a couple of months back. We have all been told that India's constitution was made by the Constituent Assembly. Rohit, who's a historian, and Ornit, who's also a historian, Rohit and Ornit show that actually there were massive debates going in the public space based on how constitution was created. So because we have all focused on the Constituent Assembly debates, we have not focused on what was going around. And they have unearthed archives, unearthed documents to show that it was a very, it was a process where people were involved. It was a people-centric process where a lot of things were involved. So I would immediately recommend these two books. And if anybody's interested, anything that Sharda writes on sport, I always recommend people to read that, because I absolutely like what she says. And I don't say this because she's a friend, but definitely, she's perhaps the best that we have in terms of what we have on sport.
Sharda is the first voice in our podcast header. When our podcast title track starts, Sharda is the first voice. And not to sound too grandiose, but to us, at least all of us at PCCI and clearly you, she'll be the first voice in Indian sports writing, like will be.
Yeah. The fact I'm here is because of Sharda. Like it's as simple as that. So huge respect for her, what she writes, and of course Prem is there, Mukul is there. A lot of good writers, people who are actually writing about sport in a holistic manner and not just about the technicalities. Because you see now, I'm sure you guys see the newspapers and you see people talking about 1.5 degree turn and 3 degree turn, and this is happening, and that's all fine. But there's a lot that's also happening alongside this. So that CLR James line, what do they know of cricket? They only the cricket know. That's what essentially, that's what. And Mike Marchese, I'm sure you guys have discussed the book on your pod. I don't want to say that. Yeah. So,
every single pod. It's a thing.
Yeah, so
we have to bring up
actually,
the book.
when we were discussing 1996 World Cup, I was very careful. I should not go towards the Mike Marchese argument and start quoting from his experience at the Firozshah Kotla. But yeah.
We quote from it all the time, Sushant, in every pod.
What a book, man! What a book! What a book!
Things he saw in '94 and he perceived in '94, and he wrote that book in
Okay,
'96.
because we are talking cricket, I think I'm sure you guys know this, that Osman Samiuddin piece on Hal in Pakistani cricket.
Yes.
Of course.
But I don't think there's a greater piece of cricket writing than that. That Hal lag gaya.
Yes.
That piece that essay is like worth its weight in gold. Nothing captures it. It captures everything about South Asia, about how we feel, about sport, about television. That Hal piece is by Osman. Yes.
Have you read his recent essay on Imran?
Yeah. And the Equator, na? Yes.
Yeah.
And even his book was good, but that Hal piece, sometimes some people appeal to you. That Hal piece like really blew me completely. Like I was like, wow, this is something else. Yes.
Have you by any chance been following his co-conspirators YouTube channel Batta Fast? Because we are big fans of Ahmer as well, and I think what Ahmer does in storytelling in cricket, I think there's pretty much nobody like that as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not following Amber's podcast, but I was in touch with Amber. Amber was trying to write something for a Pakistani newspaper and wanted some quotes from me, etc. I was only in touch with Amber for that. I will try and look for it, Batta Fast. I'll try and look for it and see that. But I hope you guys are seeing Mohammad Hanif's vlogs in Punjabi on BBC. If you have not seen that, Mohammad Hanif, who wrote that great satirical novel about a crate full of mangoes, about Zia's death, and and it's a satirical novel. Great, he's a great satirist and a great writer. You have to see those very short vlogs he does at BBC in Punjabi on various issues. He did one on A.R. Rahman. This thing, Hanif is Hanif, and again another level altogether.
Fantastic. On that note, thank you so much, Sushant, for coming on the pod.
Thank you so much, Sushant. It was so good.
Yeah, thank you guys, and it was like really wonderful. I really enjoyed myself, as you can make out. I'm sure we had great fun. I had great fun chatting with you and talking to you, and all the best to you guys. And I genuinely admire what you do, and I appreciate that you do this in these times and become the voice of sanity about the sport and trying to bring value to Indian society and to India as a country. Thank you so much for all that you do. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for coming over, Sushant. We'll be in touch. We'll keep talking to you.
That's 4 in a row. There is goes. They're going to bowl next. The prodigal son turned Messiah gets a second 100 in successive.
India have won in dramatic style.